The views and opinions expressed on this program do not reflect the company, owners, management, staff, clients, or partners.
It's Tuesday, the 29th day of June, 2021. Welcome to the Daily Hour, brought to you by Medical House One Communications and Linda's. I'm Jamal Hartman, along with Michaela Ian, as well as Leanna Lambert, who will be with us in a bit to bring you the latest in her news break. Kels, how are you today?
I'm good. I'm a little tired. This high humidity and heat is really yeah.
Yeah. No, I get it. And look, we're only a week into summer. It's going to get
I
even more.
know. And there's way more warmth to come and way more humidity to come. So I'm just like, all right, let's pace yourself. Let's drink a lot of iced coffee. I'm done with the hot. It's just too hot. It's hot.
And you come across like a summer girl, and she's saying it's too hot, folks. So
look, I love summertime, but I'm the type of person I need to be at the beach, at the pool as much as possible so that I can stay cool.
Indeed. So, and good morning to everyone, and thanks for making us part of your daily routine. Another good one today as we welcome Rashida Godwin of Titan Express to the show. We've been talking a lot about emancipation, and obviously the second day of Cot Match as of last year recognizes Mary Prince Day. So she actually, her and her company and her team, they do Emancipation and Mary Prince tours. So we'll be speaking about the importance of the work that she's doing in her space and what those tours look like. The daily is a remember when. So Michaela is guessing a history question. I think it's a pretty easy one. It's an easy one today.
As long as it's not a date, because the dates I'm right, okay.
Well, someone said yesterday in the comments after yesterday's question, someone says, man, she's really good. And I'm like, yeah, she gets them. She gets them all right. But a lot to discuss today. Obviously, there's a march taking place. What is it? Is it Cabinet Grounds?
It's at the Cabinet Grounds, yes.
At the Cabinet. It's Cabinet. So Cabinet is in on Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken.
I thought they were in on Wednesday.
Yeah, it says, June 29th, we need all Bermudian citizens present. Well, status Bermudian citizens, and no such thing as a Bermudian citizen, but I get the point.
Right, the citizen thing, I was like, okay.
Yeah, so it looks like the Cabinet building on Front Street saying bring your children. It's being held by the Bermuda Freedom Alliance. They're calling Gumby troops. So interesting. I actually think they, do you think it's going to be a large turnout?
I think so, because people can come out kind of on their lunch break and it's during the day. And a lot of people are fed up. A lot of people are tired. A lot of people feel as though their civil liberties are being taken away. So I'd be interested to see what the turnout looks like and if it's a diverse turnout. Okay.
And fair enough. I think there's obviously going to be a better turnout than the one that was held at night. Definitely. But it'll be interesting, not only the turnout, but to see, how people would march on Cabinet and a premier would come out, to see the engagement between the premier and those.
Yes. The last one I remember was back in 2009 when Dr. Brown brought the Uyghurs here.
Right. And that was pretty intense.
That was a time.
What are your thoughts, folks? Do you think what are your thoughts on today's March? yeah, it doesn't say march. Are
they calling it a protest? What are they calling
but
it?
that's what I was being very careful about using the word protest. Not sure what I mean. What do you think people are going to show up to the "We Need All Bermudian Citizens Present" at Cabinet Building today? I'll tell you this: if I was down in Bermuda, if I was understood the cause and was down for it, because all I'm looking at is the actual poster that was sent out on
right.
So I don't know exactly what it is that they're protesting or going down to cabinet about. But you know me, I would have been front and center. But I'm interested to see what the audience thinks. Like, do you all think that there's going to be a big turnout? Are you planning on showing up? Do you know someone who's planning on showing up? And while you give your answers to that, I also have I want to touch on something else, Michaela. Is there was a letter yesterday that I came across in the RG, and that letter was titled PLP, the new UBP, discuss, and it was written by Vic Ball, the senator from the One Bermuda Alliance. And in this letter, Mr. Ball likens the Bermuda Progressive Labor Party to the old United Bermuda Party, and he gives some examples of it. And it's been a big topic of conversation. But what I think is interesting regarding Mr. Bowles' letter is that I remember saying back in 2010, right? And at this time, I was part of Bermudians Against the Draft. So the government of the day was public enemy number one, right? I said this to a sitting minister. I said, you all remind me more of a UBP than the UBP itself. Like I said that, and that minister didn't want to hear what I had to say. This is 11 years ago I said that. 11 years ago.
Yeah.
So I don't think Mr. Bowles far off in his thoughts in thinking that, David Burt as premier and his administration operate in a manner that they were vehemently against when they were in office.
Yeah, it was an interesting read. I read the entire thing. It was pretty lengthy. I liked how it was easy to read. And I liked how everything was just kind of like laid out in a way where the average man or woman could understand it. And I'm not saying that I disagree with him, because I feel like for a long time, the PLP is always saying, oh, the UBP OBA. And this opinion piece, I think his main goal was, well, not his main goal, but one of his goals was to kind of show that the OBA is nothing to do with the UBP, even though some of its, older members were UBP. But it's just interesting because a government that was built on the labor movement, built, with the backing of the unions. Derek Burgess is an MP. He was the leader of the BIU, Jason Hayward, and so forth. It's just interesting how they seem to have stepped away from how they began. And so it's like, is it actually the same party that it used to be, or has it gone so far away from that?
Well, it's interesting you ask that, because I tell people all the time, when we say things like have they gone away from what they were, and it's kind of hard to compare, because we never really saw a lot of the founders or the older PLP folks in government to know if this way they would have acted. However, that said, they never did act this way because they were not in government, right? Here's my challenges with and I'm glad that in a couple of weeks we'll have the premier on, David Burt, he can actually speak to this himself.
Yes.
But I think the challenge that many people have, and there are things that we get, Michaela, you and I, that are not public, and out of respect we can't make public. But
of course,
the consensus is that when people look at the premier and his administration and they operate, it does come across very UBP-ish. What do people mean by that? Well, let's go to the letter by Mr. Burt, where he says one of the first things Mr. Burt did as premier was to give Ewart Brown 1.2 million of our tax dollars. Now, let's. He goes on to talk about the $800,000 to the U.S. promoter to the recording studio. He mentioned his pet fintech, which we've yet to really see the results of yet.
Yeah.
He also mentioned the PLP passing legislation allowing foreigners and foreign companies to purchase property in the economic empowerment zone for approved schemes for up to 131 years. And he gives quite a few examples. So I guess the question is, are these issues only if the OBA was in power, Michaela? Like, and my challenge, what I have a problem with, what really hurts is that I really do believe, as I said to MP Famous last week, that if the OBA were in power, we would have seen numerous parades. I want to just talk one more thing before you jump in. The other thing he mentioned was the unions. Now, I think Mr. Ball was being strategic. They're trying to cause even more friction between them. Not sure if that's even possible because it's there. But again, like, how do the outers like Ottawell Simmons feel about this? Does he agree with the PLP's move? I don't. When I look at David Burt as premier, I don't see someone who is part of the group that created the PLP for what people say they're to do. I just don't see that.
No. And this is the thing. So I will give the government the benefit of the doubt in that there's a whole paragraph that Vic Ball has in this article. And he says, where is it? Under this PLP government, we have cronyism, a crushing debt, education in crisis, high stress levels, fewer opportunities, and a shrinking economy, rising costs, polarizing division, steadily decreasing standard of living. Mr. and Mrs. Bermuda are worse off today than any time in recent memory. We've also been in a pandemic for the last 16 months.
Yes.
So I think we have to give that context. You know what I mean? So I get his criticisms. I totally get it. There's a lot in there that I agree with. But we do have to remember that we have been in a pandemic. So of course there's going to be economic issues. Of course we're going to be having financial hardships. Of course there are going to be a lot of people who are out of work. That's not unique to Bermuda. That's what the world is feeling. You know what I mean? But I just think it's interesting that, he's pulled out the St. Regis event as an example of the premier not following his own COVID guidelines. We all know that was a safe key event. Like, so when people keep bringing up, oh, David Burt was outside close to people and he didn't have on a mask. It was a safe key event where everyone was vaccinated. Like, please stop bringing that up as an example of breaking rules, because
his argument would have held weight if he would have said the premier creates rules to benefit himself. That's
exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be arguing against that, but stop bringing that up. Like, it's just irritating me, because it's just like, we know that wasn't a whole big thing. Like, stop. You know what I mean?
Well, here's a challenging question to the audience. Here's the one that's going to stump everyone. So the PLP is supposed to be the political party for the Black person, the struggle, right? And somebody put it to me the other day. All but 4.5 years, right? The PLP government has basically had political power since November 9th, 1998.
Yes.
Since November 9th, 1998. And Black people, you need to think really, really hard on this. And let me just start by saying I am encouraged by the amount of people, especially young people, out there doing their thing. Got these business to consumer businesses, and they're creating products and services and whatnot. But I want someone in the audience, because I could be wrong, but someone brought it to my attention last week. Since the PLP have been in power, what opportunities have they created that have led to a major Black business opening and operating? When I say major Black business, I'm talking about hiring. They have at least 20 full-time employees.
Right.
When I talk about major Black business, they're fulfilling a need. It's a bank, insurance company, right? Grocery store.
Yeah.
What has the Bermuda Progressive Labor Party done to create these kinds of opportunities? No, if you say they've created these opportunities, but Black Bermudians haven't created the business, then okay, why haven't Black Bermudians created the businesses? But that's the question. Go ahead, Kale. Sorry.
No, it's just interesting because we always talk about the PLP as the party for the Black people, and they actually care about the Black people. And, the OBA doesn't really care about the Black people, et cetera, et cetera. And it's just interesting because the foundation of all of that is education, right? And therefore, for the longest time, there has been, oh, well, the UBP ruined the school system. But how long has the PLP had you fix it? You know what I mean? And like when I worked at the Royal Gazette, I was the education reporter. And so I used to see like what went on and how things were talked about being done, but then things were never done. And then in my research, and this was 10 years ago when I was working at the Royal Gazette, I found out that it costs more money to house a prisoner. Like we, the taxpayers, pay more money per prisoner than we do per student in the education system. And for me, that was like, you say that you're here for Black people and you want Black people to improve and live their best lives, but we're spending more money on prisoners than we're spending on children in schools, where we should be starting in that foundation. Our public schools should be incredible because they're, majority Black children are in there. So if we're the party for the Black people, then why aren't we doing this,
Oh, the excuse, and I remember Sherry J used to say it all the time. Like people would call her show, right? And they would always go on about tack this, tack that. And she used to say, like, what's stopping y'all from creating a tax base where we don't like, and this is my issue, folks. Like, I think the Bermuda Progressive Labour Party as a political party, not government, have done an awesome job of teaching the history they want people to know in terms of all Black people was stifled politically. But I think they've done a horrible job in creating opportunities or legislation and policies where Black people can have that type of opportunity to create for themselves. And I this is not about bashing the government. This is like just going back to Vic Bowles' letter, right? There's a lot of stuff that is in there, and if people put their politics aside, Sean Smith says right here, Vic made you stop and think about what he was saying.
Yeah.
Compare PLP that started in 1998 to PLP today, and you can see his point, right? Sam Cat plays kills.
Vic was spitting facts. As much as the fighting needs to stop, we all know that if this was the OBA, y'all would be barking loudly. My point exactly.
Absolutely. Kathy Brumby says, and Bermuda was in 400 million in 30-year bonds. Who is going to pay that back? Our children / grandchildren? No one is concerned. Why? Someone said to me the other day, and I don't like to think of it like this, but they said, pandemic's actually a great distraction for the government. And I'm like, I'm not quite sure they'd see it like that because they're taking so many slams. And the point the person was making is, while we're distracted with the pandemic, are we focused enough on education? Are we focused on the whole healthcare thing, which was going on, the government taking over healthcare or something like I can't remember the exact before the pandemic.
Right.
It was the economy and fintech. Like what's happened with fintech, as Vic mentioned, like where are the results from fintech? Tamara Richardson Kills.
Report card time. What has been achieved in 30 years that didn't involve government-borne risk for private benefit? Even the 800K debacle was purely government risk, which means no one is accountable. No skin in the game. Yeah.
And I want to touch on the no skin in the game because this is another interesting fact. Right? I said to someone, and you might actually disagree. I'm interested to hear your perspective on this. So I said to someone, have you read Dr. Ewart Brown's book? Have you read it?
No, I didn't want to pay $50 for it. It's a lot of money for a book.
He would, in media. He would have sent you one free like he did me. But
it was just like, it was a little steep. Like, I'm like, $30 is the most I'm going to pay for a book.
No, I definitely got the media version, and it's our version, so I'll make sure I get it to you. So basically, when I read the book, I thought of something, and he didn't tell me this, but I thought of something with Dr. Ewart Brown. And I need to see if you understand what I'm saying with this. And I said to someone recently, I said, Dr. Brown was actually, as bad as he may be to a lot of people, he was on the right side of history in some respects. And someone says, well, what do you mean right side of history? And I said, okay, let's take it back. Do you remember in the mid-2000s, or noughts as people call them, right? The cab drivers were near ready to take his head. Like, I mean, they were picketing and everything because they were against GPS,
Yep.
I'm pretty sure every cab has a GPS now. I could be mistaken, or a large majority. That's point one. Point two, Dr. Ewart Brown was pushing for casinos. Everyone, including his own party, pushed back. The One Bermuda Alliance got in power, and they ran ahead. And now, look, you see casino jobs being offered at St. Regis. I'm using those 2 points. Now, this is not to say that other things that Dr. Brown did were great. What I'm simply saying is, with at least those 2 things, he's probably been proven right in terms of history. Yeah. My point is, and this is the audience, a simple yes or no. Simple yes or no. Do you believe that years from now, we'll be looking back at the handling of COVID by the Burt administration, and he will actually be on the right side of history based on what's happened? Because I think it was Glenn Jones that said it years ago when Dr. Brown's time was up. I'm wrong. My apologies to Mr. Glenn Jones. But I believe it was him that said, we're not going to be able to judge Dr. Brown's time as premier until years from now. So I want to ask people, do you think, because sometimes being in leadership is not about, it's not really about being popular unless you're trying to win an election, because it's a popularity contest, right? That sometimes you win by default. But do you believe that David Burt as premier will be proven right years from now the way he's handled COVID?
Yeah, see, the thing with Dr. Brown, I agree that he was definitely beyond his time. He was definitely a visionary. The thing about Dr. Brown was he was very polarizing, very, very polarizing. And so in a small country like Bermuda, when you have a Black man who is very educated, who is very confident, very sure of himself, there are a lot of people that don't like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They don't like it at all. So I feel like he stood in his, I'm polarizing and that's that, but I'm going to do what I think is best.
Yeah. But do you think that Premier David Burt, in that respect, I mean, some can say Dr. Brown was polarizing, but David Burt as premier is arrogant. At least Dr. Brown had skin in the game. David Burt had skin in the game.
So Dr. Brown was polarizing, but his base supported him. He was beloved. So when he was premier, I was still working at the Gazette, and it was an interesting media time, but his base loved and supported him. I don't see that happening right now in the Burt administration.
Yeah.
Just based on what I've read, what I've seen, and all of that. It's just, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think Dr. Brown had this much dysfunction with his MP, like backbench and so on, as is reported, I should say.
I agree, because and back to the interview on Friday with Chris Famous, I don't think any backbencher from Dr. Brown's time would have, come out and said that, poor communication, or they find out what's happening in the news. I don't think that would have happened.
Indeed. Carmel Mitchell-Jones believes, yes, David Burt will be, and the question was, folks, for those who don't know, do you believe David Burt as premier will be proven right years from now for the way he's handled COVID, the way maybe Dr. Brown's been proven right with the GPS and the cabs and the casino? Carmel Mitchell-Jones says yes. Nicole Walker says no. Sam Cat Place has mixed feelings. Sean Smith kills.
Most Black people do not talk about building businesses, not mom and pop shops, but real businesses that employ 20 plus people to their children. We need to educate in these areas. Yeah, Sean, we should talk about this, actually. I'd love to have this conversation with you.
And that's, and I agree, because, and what Sean Smith's referring to is the question I asked earlier, folks. And since 1998, has the Bermuda Progressive Labor Party, have there been any Black businesses under this government? Have there been any progressive ones that have created 20 full-time jobs? And this came from a friend of mine who I believe is very successful in their own right. But have there been any success? Like what do they have to show outside? And I want to go back to the comment, because I think Tamara Richardson said, outside of purely government risk, like basically government loans and bonds. We're the results. We actually are going over time, folks, but feel free to still comment. We have to bring Leanna in. My goodness, time got away, kid.
I didn't even look at the time.
We gotta go to the news break with Lee. What happens when Michaela gets it? So she is. I'm like, Kayla, stop. We gotta go news.
Oh.
Put me under the box.
Threw you right under.
I know I said that a lot. I meant to. No, Lee, I'm so sorry. Let's go straight to the news. And then we have Rashida Godwin coming on with another important conversation. And I think this conversation ties into not only cop match conversation, but also what we're talking about today. As you know, we've had a per se black government since 98, right? How have black people progressed, and what role does history play in our success and progress in business? Lee, over to you. I'm sorry. We're sorry.
Thanks, Jamala, Michaela, and good morning to all of our listeners out there, both locally and overseas. I hope everyone is having a great start to their day. I'm Leanna Lambert, and it's time for our daily hour news break. Now, taking a look at today's top stories. Protesters are expected to march on the cabinet grounds today to show their disapproval over the island's restrictions against the pandemic, and they will be met by Premier David Burt. Now, the Premier said that he and cabinet would pause their weekly meeting to see the demonstrators and receive documents outside cabinet, which organizers have drafted. Now, the protest, which is to begin at 11:30 a.m., was called earlier this month by a group of only known as concerned citizens. An online flyer circulated social media groups for the demonstration saying vaccinated and unvaccinated were all equal. The Premier said peaceful protest and assembly is the cornerstone of a free society and that he respects the rights of those who will attend. He said, quote, "The organizers have asked that the government consider their submissions, and I can assure them that we will do so," end quote. Close to 10% of the Bermudian workforce was unemployed in November. It was revealed yesterday by Labor Minister Jason Hayward. Now, he said that the jobless rate for Bermudians was 9.6%, according to the November 2020 Labor Force Survey report, with Black Bermudians being hardest hit by the pandemic-induced recession. The survey also showed that the overall unemployment rate was 7.9%, which equated to nearly 2,900 people, up from the 3.8% a year earlier. Now, it should be noted that 497 people of the close to 3,000 asked said that they were temporarily unemployed in the survey report. Mr. Hayward revealed the findings at a press conference yesterday afternoon, during which he also outlined the second phase of government's National Reemployment Strategic Plan. Initiatives included the Economic Stimulus Jobs Initiative, a joint initiative with the Department of Works and Engineering, through which 9 companies have expressed an interest in employing Bermudians as apprentices, trainees, and tradespeople. He said the goal is to provide 20 employment opportunities to unemployed individuals through the initiative. He also said that the department will continue to forge partnerships with industry and HR professionals to broaden the range of the on-the-job training, internships, virtual learning webinars, and online career development and training programs. A mysterious early morning motorcycle crash has left a 19-year-old man needing treatment in hospital and police questioning what actually took place. The suspected single vehicle crash, which left the Southampton man unconscious in the road with facial, back, and internal injuries, occurred shortly after 1 a.m. on Saturday. Now, according to police, officers and emergency services arrived at the scene on Palmetto Road in Devonshire near the junction with Frog Lane to find the man in the road with several people gathered. Police say that they investigated the area but did not find a vehicle, landing them unsure of whether the injured teen was the rider or pillion passenger at the time of the incident. They have appealed for witnesses to come forward. And an investigation has been launched into a stabbing incident after a 25-year-old Sands Parish man attended the hospital for treatment. Police say that details are limited at this time. However, it is understood that the man sustained a serious stab wound to his chest, although at last check, the injury was not described to be life-threatening. The incident is said to have happened just before 3 a.m. in the Somerset Road, Cambridge Road area late Saturday night or early Sunday morning, but he was transported to hospital by a private car. For today's weather, we have a high near 83 and a low near 75 degrees. A series of weak troughs are expected over the next few days and will interrupt the broad ridge of high pressure extending across most of the western Atlantic, bringing about isolated showers to our area at times. Now, light winds will gradually veer to the south by late Wednesday, and this change will draw in warm, humid air, causing an increase in the potential for showers. That's all for our daily hour news break. But before I go, I want to send a big congratulations to all the graduates of 2021 from preschool right through high school. Let's head back to Jamal and Michaela in the studio for today's Daily Focus.
Thanks so much, Lee. Appreciate you. Such sad news that you're bringing to us, but nothing we can do about that. So we'll see you tomorrow, sister.
See you guys.
All right. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back with Rashida Godwin from Titan Express. You don't want to miss this, folks. We're talking about emancipation, Mary Prince. And I'm just going to be very frank and honest with you. I didn't learn about Mary Prince probably until 5 years ago. And that's just me. So these kind of conversations we're thankful for. We're grateful for Rashida for trusting the platform. So stick with us. Do not go anywhere. And these are the kind of conversations I hope that you do share, retweet, and just get your family and friends into.
Mom's celebrating her 70th birthday next month. Have you noticed her age is catching up with her?
Yeah. Plus, she's having a hard time getting up and around like she's used to. I would sure hate to see her fall.
At Medical House Limited, we can help make life situations easier. We have electric beds, motorized scooters, bath stools, walkers, you name it.
Mom's been real good to us. We'll get her birthday and Christmas gifts from Medical House.
Medical House has relocated next to the Dendy Town Field. Number 6 Bakery Lane, Pembroke. Telephone 292-3622.
John Barrett & Son, Bermuda's favorite distributor of fine beverages, has brought us a new and refreshing thirst quencher just in time for the approaching warm weather. Hint Water in 7 luscious flavors. Hint Water is slaking the thirst of active people who need pure hydration, low on the glycemic index, and want the kind of taste experience that keeps them coming back to try the next flavor. For those who've been giving water a miss, Hint may win you over. Hint Water. No sugar, no additives, all flavor. Lindo's. Why go anyplace else?
All right, welcome back to the Big Show, Michaela Ian. I'm Jamal Hartman. It's the Daily Hour brought to you by Medical House One Communications, Lindo's, and our friends over at Channel 82, where you can stream this and many other locally produced shows. Look, we are a bit behind time. Without further ado, let's bring in Rashida to the conversation. Rashida, please forgive us. My big fat mouth.
Sorry. Morning. No worries. That's being Bermudian, right?
Yes.
That's conversation. Other, cultures didn't understand. That's part of our culture. We just thought.
See, that's what I'm talking about. So Rashida and I actually went to college together, so she's known me a while. She's been in classes with me where I've gone over time. So I'm that student that probably kept us long. But Rashida, thank you for doing this. We appreciate you. Just do us a favor. Bring your camera up a bit because your mouth's covered. But yeah.
Okay.
There we go. I want to make sure people can see your smile. Look, let's get right to the conversation. For those who don't know, obviously you've been on before, but just tell those who maybe new, what is Titan Express and what is it that you do?
Titan Express is good morning, Jamal, and good morning, Michaela. First of all,
good morning.
My manners, you bring me into. So Titan Express is a transportation and tour company. So we do have co-own it with my husband. We do have 6 buses, mini buses, and we do transportation as well as tours and stuff like that. Even with the cruise ships, the cruise ship being now assisting them, and so that's been great. We do large group transportations, really, because we could take anywhere from 130 people at one time and move them throughout the island. Yeah, so so we work a lot with Hamilton Princess, different hotels, even St. Regis is called. So it's picking up. COVID, of course, it died pretty much because of COVID. And otherwise than that, I also do a tour, which is my special baby, called the African Bermuda Dispersion Cultural Tours. I love history, and it's just been it came from pretty much out of being with groups of people, and we just have our own conversations. And I felt the need that we need to take these conversations and bring them out to the public, because a lot of us that know history, we would normally just stay in silos and talk to each other about stuff and meet. And I just felt it was necessary to put these stories out there so that Bermudians would be aware of what happened on this island.
I don't want you to answer everything to get to there, but
okay.
But I definitely want to go back to something you said. You said that you love history. And I think I speak for many, and I say, and maybe it was the history that was being taught when I was in school. It was not one of my favorites, and I think I speak for a large majority of people in my circle. But so that said, why have you chosen to make a career out of sharing our history?
Because that history that we were taught in schools was not for our benefit, and that was the absolute wrong history.
Agree.
That was history based on white people, different things that they went through of no benefit to us. How did we get here? Why did we just, and I joke with the kids, I have to give props out to Cedar Bridge because they've used me over the past few years to take out their whole social studies department, and just seeing how fascinated the kids are to really, truly be engaged in history because they're learning about themselves. And so we joke too, and I say, guys, we didn't come here on a carnival ship with an all-eat buffet. So it's not going to be that today. And they just laugh, and we have a good time, but we go through the stories, and it's just important for our children and just our people to know where we came from, but not only where we came from, where we are today, and what's still here, to know that the catastrophe that's happened, which they call it also, some people say the Holocaust, but I said, no way. When I went to Ghana, they call it the Great Ma'afa, and that meant great disaster. So the great disaster that happened to our people coming over here for the benefit of whites, for them to build the wealth for white people, it was a great disaster, and our children need to know about that. And that was still here. We are literally standing on the shoulders of giants, and we have to pay tribute to them. We cannot act like this history never happened. I understand why it's not being taught in schools, and that's another reason why I have so much passion to do it myself.
And that was leading into my next question. How important is it to you for us to know our history?
It's absolutely imperative. It's all in who we are. I might just go through just a quick short timeline. I mean, when the first African was brought here in 1616 to die for pearls, just to continuously brought her to build wealth for whites. And then 1619 were the first Africans from Angola brought her that were pirated. And then so we got from the 1600s right up until 1834. Black people work for free. Slavery was instituted. It was a law in 1623 that the white oligarchy put in code, a law to restrain the insolences of the Negroes. And that law restricted Black people's commerce, so they couldn't make any money. And it also restricted the movement on the island as well, too. So for 200 plus years, they were put into slavery, and they also changed at first they were indentured servants for 7 years, and they changed that indentured servitude to 99 years, hence making them enslaved chattel.
But Kales, before you jump in, but this happened 1600 to 1800. Why does it matter today? I'm saying this because this is what we encounter when we speak about it. We encounter it. They say, well, I read something about a lady saying that it's racist for Black people to ask for reparations. It's racist for, right now, the big argument in the United States is critical race theory. It's racist for Black people to still be hanging on to what happened 200 years before they were born. It's racist to expect white people who had nothing to do with what their ancestors did to be focusing on this. Like, what do you say to that?
Just two things. It's absolutely imperative. 1834, August 1st, 1834, when Black Bermudians who were enslaved received their freedom here in Bermuda from the British government at that time. It wasn't from the Bermuda government, it was from Britain, instituted here. That during that time that they didn't receive anything. A compensation, Britain immediately paid out a compensation of 20 million pounds throughout the British overseas territories to those white enslavers, which included 50,000 pounds of that money came to Bermuda. Also, immediately after emancipation, what took place at the very next time, they didn't put it into law, but it was just a practice, which was called segregation. Segregation lasted up until, you might as well say, the 1970s almost. Schools weren't even integrated. Nothing was integrated. The last ones that were integrated were the golf courses in 1967. During those times, Black people and that's why, I'm also dealing with the Friendly Societies, because that goes also into it. It's that they had to come together and they had to bring their resources together and their money together they couldn't even vote. They couldn't do nothing. We're talking about 1970, Jamal. Yeah. 1970. Yeah. And so the first ones that really started to make money and really started to build some wealth was not until 1970. I'm born 77. So it wasn't that long ago. And I meet with white Bermudians, because I talk to everybody, and if you don't want to talk to me, then that's fine. But I talk to a lot of white Bermudians who live off of that wealth, and they understand, and they do believe that Black people, especially Black Bermudians, should be there going towards reparations. We have an easy case towards reparations.
Real quickly, not to take away from the conversation, word just coming in that an arrest has been made in connection with a hit-and-run collision which occurred in Somerset on Sunday. We're awaiting confirmation from the Bermuda Police Service. So anyone who heard the report from Leanna, that's with that. But I just want to say before Michaela jumps in that what you just spoke of, and this is how critical and important I believe what you do is for Bermuda and Bermudians. In 2017, December, I went to the African American Museum in DC. And it was there that I first learned that when slavery was ended, that the slave owners, they were the ones that were paid what would be billions of dollars today. And these enslaved who were set free were given nothing. And so what's crazy about this is not every Bermudian has been to this museum or has the opportunity to go. So I say that, folks, because Rashida is giving us information that I only know because I was lucky enough to go to that museum. This information that you're speaking of is, folks, I don't care what race you are. White folks, if you want to understand why these conversations are necessary, that one line right there will show you. Because what I want to just put on to what Rashida said, not only did they receive all this money, but the key to all of this here, along with the money, these people were your bankers, judges, police officers,
insurance companies.
I'm just saying. Go ahead, Kales. I'm sorry.
No, I love this conversation and I will always champion in it. And I love how you talked about segregation, because I feel like so many people don't realize how recent it was. Like my father went to St. George's Prep. My aunt, who's 9 years older than him, could not go to St. George's Prep. Once I realized that, I was like, are you serious? Because I didn't know, because we weren't taught it. So I'm so grateful that you're teaching this to children. I had to wait until my adult years to find out all these things. So when it comes to Mary Prince, how does she fit into this?
Mary Prince, she fits into it greatly. She is the first. She was born in Bermuda. She was born into slavery. They say circa about 1785, 1788. And she was actually the first enslaved Black woman to actually give her enslaved narrative to the Anti-Slavery Society in London, England. Her enslaved narrative is actually in a book that we could purchase from the Griot or from Brown and Company, and even on Amazon. It's called The History of Mary Prince, a West Indian Slave. And it talks about how, slavery was just horrible here in Bermuda. She talks about all the slave owners that she had here in Bermuda. She had about 5 Bermudian white slave owners. And, her story at that time, Britain was looking to abolish slavery throughout its British overseas territories, which included Bermuda. But during that time, they couldn't just take notes just from white folks, from the enslavers. They also were looking for stories from the people that were actually enslaved. And her story was used to actually put as a petition to Britain's Parliament to start the move towards abolishing slavery throughout the British overseas territories, which included Bermuda. And then you have in August 1833, Britain put in the Abolishment Acts and slavery, they said to start to end slavery throughout the overseas territories. And then in August 1st, 1834, the Emancipation Acts came here in Bermuda to those Black Bermudians that were enslaved. And what's the holiday that we celebrate around that time?
Much, yes. So where did the idea come from to conduct these tours?
Really, what's so interesting is I was really pulled into it too, as well too. I had some young professionals, not only chatter, I see them. They were young, and I just used to talk to them. I see them out just like how I see you out now, and we're just getting to conversation. And they were in corporate banks, different stuff, and just realizing that they're hitting a lot of glass ceilings and just couldn't understand it. It's like, I got all the education, I got all the qualifications, and I was just reiterating and sharing from different things that unfortunately, guys, we have this historical it's been like that historically. Nobody's told us that, but historically, you will hit glass ceilings being a Black person lots of times. That unfortunately that happens. And I just was sharing from the history. And one time they called me, it was about 10 of them, and said, can you just take me out on a tour to give me history of Bermuda, because we don't know our history. And some of them felt like they were even being made fun of at their jobs as well too.
Oh, wow.
Tell me about being Black and hitting ceilings.
That's the thing. I mean, this is a whole conversation for another day, but I'm a big fan of like building your own table rather than trying to sit at other people's tables.
Yes.
So you say that your tours are geared towards, because there are so many of us who don't even know all of this.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries. Who are your tours geared towards? Like, who's your ideal tour person?
Everybody, but for me, it really is just families. Just come out, whether you're Black, white, Portuguese, it doesn't matter. Because what's happened is, unfortunately, many of us have so much misinformation. And yes, it's been given to us sometimes probably from our parents or folks that we respect, but unfortunately it was misinformation. And so that information needs to be corrected. Like, for instance, you guys said, Jamal, you said just now that someone said Black people are racist. Black people could never be racist. Racism is based on economics, money, equity. We don't have any money to be racist. In order to be racist, one group has to subjugate another group, and they subjugate that other group through money, through economics. So I'll leave the bands for you to pick out about that. But Black people could never, ever be racist. Never.
I say it very often, and people, I think it's they're disingenuous and they're being intellectually dishonest. Like, I think they know better, but it makes them feel better. Racism is not calling people names, folks. That's not how it works. So we have a lot of comments and questions in the audience, and I know that they explained this at the African American Museum in DC. Rosalind Famous is asking, what would 50,000 pounds equate to in Bermuda dollars today? Just to get a current perspective. I remember they said like such and such equated to 2.3 billion in there.
Yeah.
I can't remember exact. Go ahead.
I could give a perspective in that, just to get your perspective of the amount of money it was, even just over the 20 million pounds as well too, that Britain only paid off that loan because they got a loan for it. They only paid it off in 2015. So that's to give you a perspective on the amount of money that it was. So if there ought to be a case for reparations.
Hello. And I mean, it was enough money for N.T. Butterfield, who got his one pot to start an entire bank.
Yeah, it's Andy Bank. And a lot of people also don't talk about CNA Butterfield, which was his insurance company that he started in the early centuries as well, that insured property and businesses. And as one lady on my tour said, well, I don't think the property was bananas.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to the audience because it's something. Janet Maynard says Bermudians need to go to that DC to that museum. Glad I had the opportunity. Would go again if the opportunity arises. But this brings me home because I actually disagree a bit. I don't think Bermudians should have to go to DC to learn this kind of stuff. When and I'm just going to be very frank, Rashida, what do we need to do as a community to ensure that it's not just a tour, but it's a space? Like, I know we have the National Museum of Bermuda, which is really, really good. I learned a lot of stuff up there. If you've been there, it's not as big as the DC one where you're going. Like, DC one's very interesting. Like, you start down bottom and you go up, whatnot. But does Bermuda need a space like that for you to make your job easier, to train people on the history so that we can make it more a part of who we are? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yes, absolutely. I have been in talks with the museum. I did do a tour up there. To be honest, I didn't want to really do the tour because a lot of the information up there is somewhat outdated, and they do have to revise that information. And some stuff for me, I'm honest, guys, you know, and I'm not into the white savior stuff. So for Black people, and it was a lot of that, you know, up there. And so I find a lot of the history was whitewashed. So when you do come on my tour that I do at the museum, that I don't whitewash it. And I just I go into Africa because some of what's not up there is that they should talk about a lot of also the resistance in Africa. During slavery and before slavery, when the Portuguese were coming into Africa and the Europeans were coming into Africa, many of those Africans were it was a big resistance fighting for us not to get on their ships. But, you know, they still stole us in many ways too. We were stealing people, you know, and then we ended up in here. And then I talk about, you know, how Britain built its wealth, you know, all those countries, all those European countries built our wealth off of slavery.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned something because I didn't learn until I went to the museum in DC that Portuguese were actually the biggest slave traders.
You didn't know that?
I didn't know that until I went there. I knew they played a role, but I always thought
they were
the UK. I thought the UK, like
the
Portuguese were the biggest slave traders, and you wouldn't think it growing up in Bermuda.
And that's why I get frustrated when people say Portuguese people aren't white. I'm like, I'm sorry.
Well, that's ignorance to me, and some of my closest friends have said that, and I'm like, they are white Europeans. You all look, the language you speak doesn't define your culture. Like
exactly.
There's Black Brazilians and Black Portuguese in Brazil. They are African people who we're not English. We're not English because we speak the language. And I think people confuse the two.
Yes.
So to be clear, Portuguese are white Europeans. That's not a bad thing. It's just what they are. It's not
what it is.
It's not saying that they're bad people. Like, I'm a Black Bermudian, right, of African descent. It's not a bad thing. But again, to the point I was making is I did not know that until then, and so it was interesting to learn that history. I'm going to go to the audience. We are running out of time. Monica Dunstan says Portuguese is a Caucasian race, and they did their share of oppression. Trust me. And Kathy Brumby says, I love the sound of your tour. Dr. Pierman says, white savior, no way, we don't need a white savior. Karen Edwards Simmons, I think that we should and must learn about history on island and all the schools, public and private homeschool, in our homes to dispel the misinformation in history. Now, I want to ask, because we had yesterday the president of Somerset, and I did ask a question of him and St. George's. I asked, like, you know, outside of cricket, what are the clubs doing? Is there an opportunity for you to work with these clubs as a part of the emancipation history and day?
Yeah, absolutely. I know some of them's reached out to me, and we'll be working on some things, probably more than likely maybe starting next year, definitely when it comes to emancipation, because they really want to do, have the guys do something before they, even they have a reception at Camden House. So I will take them out on tour, and it is very, very important. Like I said, in August, I'm doing tours with the Friendly Societies, and they were the ones who actually started Cup Match, but handed it over to the clubs eventually. And they've been, the Friendly Societies and the Manchester Laws have been a bit disappointed because the last few years, I think the last year, Cup Match was held in 2019. I don't think they didn't give out their award. They normally give out a Cup Match award, but they didn't find anyone fitting to deserve the award. It's because we haven't shared these stories and we don't know the shoulders that we stand on. So therefore, it's no base to go out there with such the pride that people want you to go out there with, and we have to get back to that, because it's a game, yes, but it's more than a game. It's more than Somerset and St. George's. It really is. It's a day that our ancestors took. It took over 100 years before it actually became an official government holiday. And
tell her what year, Rashida.
What year?
Yeah.
That it became a government holiday? 1947.
No, but what year was it renamed Emancipation Day?
I think 2011. Was
99.
It? No, 99.
Yeah,
Okay.
99. Look, I was happy. That's one of the first, only ones I got no vote.
Yes,
1947 official holiday, 1999 officially renamed. But I'm happy when I stumped Michaela. You ever had that person in class where they get all the answers right and you just want to throw a paper at them or something? Yeah.
That's how you used to feel about me.
No, really, seriously.
I saw your face.
No, seriously. No, in our college, you used to get awards at the end of each term for like being the smartest, and you got all the awards like for getting the highest GPA and stuff. But I'll leave that. She didn't let me get one. But Kathy Rogers says, I love all the Titan tours that are they're truly the best. Pam Wade says, we did a family tour and it was so enlightening and eye-opening through it all. I want to go, Amanda Kelly says, Rashida, do you have a succession plan? I'm not sure I understand that, but you have a succession plan.
That means to pass it on to someone else, or
just
I think you mean
clarify that for us if you can, Amanda Kelly. Sean Smith says, I am living here in Portugal, he means, and they are white, located in the southern part of Europe. Look, I want to put you on the spot. We're going to do something. Let me set it up because you did a giveaway and we forgot to follow through last time you were on the show, right?
Oh gosh.
So can we do a giveaway today?
Sure. Yeah.
Can I enter it, please?
Sure, Kales. So let's do a giveaway. The hashtag is gonna be what do you want it to be? Titan Express or Mary Prince?
Yeah, hashtag Mary Prince.
Okay, Mary Prince, folks. Mary Prince. Yeah. The hashtag is Mary Prince, right? You all know how to spell Mary, right? Mary
Prince. Know how to spell Prince.
What do you want to give away, Rashida? Up to you, because I really felt bad that we were supposed to do a giveaway back in February. We didn't do it. What do you want to give away today?
I'm going to give away actually 2 tickets for Mary Prince tour and 2 tickets for the Friendly Society tour.
Okay. And while you all are putting your hashtags in, hashtag Mary Prince, just speak to the people of if they don't win, if they're losers, right? How they can get in touch with you to go on these tours, how long are the tours, and what are the benefits of doing these tours?
Okay, the tour, they could get in touch with me at TitanToursBermuda.com. That's TitanToursBermuda.com, or they could call my number at 234-1096. We have Mary Prince tours in July, and then in August, we're working with the Friendly Society, the Manchester Lodge, every Friday evening and doing tours with them. The tours are no more than 2 hours, so we do keep them short, to keep you engaged, and we try not to bore people too much, but just to share the history of what actually happened here in Bermuda over the several hundred years.
I'm actually ashamed, Kales. I don't know about you, but when I think back of how boring I thought history was, and then I think back to what Rashida said, it's not that history bored me, it was the history that they taught.
Yeah, it's the history that they taught us, because when you're learning about, European architecture and all that stuff that had nothing to do with me and my people, it's like, okay, meanwhile, Black history always loved it. Always.
Indeed. Well, let's do the draw. So we're going to give away 5 tickets to one person, right?
No, 2 and 2.
2 for Mary Prince and 2 for the Friendly Society.
Okay. All right. So 2 tickets to Mary Prince. So we're going to do the Mary Prince first, right? So, and we'll just use the same hashtag. So the first one we're going to do, here we go. Are you all ready? We have 44 entries. Got a
nice
100 something tuned in, so some of you won't be getting picked up. So let's hit draw. But this is 2 tickets to the Mary Prince tour with Titan Express. Here we go. Who's got it? Big money, big money. What's they say? No whammy, no whammy. That's no whammies, no whammies, no whammies. Who's got it? Who's got it? Who's got it? Rosalind Famous. She is a winner. So Rosalind Famous, you will get it. You have 2 tickets to the Mary Prince, and we're going to do that draw again. So we're going to do this one's to the Friendly Societies, right?
Yes.
All right, here we go. Let's do again. We're going to hit it and see who gets friendly. That would be something if Rosalind Famous got them both, right?
Oh gosh,
that would be something. Let's see who is it. Big money, no whammy, no whammy, no whammy. He's got it. He's got it.
Awesome.
Monica Johnston. All righty. So, folks, send us an email, engage@thedailyhour.com, and we'll forward your information to Rashida. Rashida, honestly, I can't thank you enough. You and I are in touch pretty often. When I'm there, folks, I did book a ticket this weekend. I will be returning to Bermuda for the first time since 2019. So I'm
happy to have you.
I will be there soon. Last time we were hanging out, I think, Kales.
Yes.
So I'll be there. So I will definitely ensure that I'm involved.
Yes.
In some way. I don't know if Michaela's going to be there to join.
I'm coming. Let's go. Let's go.
But Rashida, thank you so much, and we'll definitely be in touch until the next time you're available to come on.
Okay, thanks for having me and appreciate it very much. Have a great day, guys.
You too, no problem.
Thank you, Rashida.
All right. Yeah, Janine's talking about get your travel authorization sorted. I really hope that all of that stuff.
Listen.
Let's take a quick break. We're going to come back. We still have a daily play. If you enjoyed that conversation with Rashida, please, you know what to do. Give us a thumbs up, a love, a like. If some of the history broke your heart, you know what to do. But show her some love. Titan Express, really, really grateful for her trusting our platform. And we'll be right back.
At Bermuda Communications Group Limited, we love to help businesses and organizations of all sizes across various industries. Find out how we've been working with our clients to improve their customer experience and increase their revenue. Send us an email to contact@bermudacommunications.com to see how we can assist you next.
All right. Thank you once again to Rashida. Like I said, folks, show us some love. Give us a thumbs up, a love, a like, and make sure you share this conversation. We need to know our history.
Yes.
The Daily Play brought to you by Heineken 0.0. Great taste and no alcohol. Here is the question for you all. Universal but not equal suffrage was achieved in what decade in Bermuda?
Repeat it. Sorry.
Universal but not equal suffrage was achieved in what decade in Bermuda?
60s?
She is really good. Wow, like seriously.
I knew that one.
Really?
Yeah. I knew that one because I remember that when I found out that my Nana couldn't vote until, I think she couldn't vote until the 70s. I was shocked.
Yeah.
I was shocked.
It was 1961.
Yeah. I couldn't believe that. Yeah. I couldn't believe it. Insane.
We'll get it tomorrow, folks. It was not equal, just for those who don't know. It was not equal because landowners receive a plus vote. Right. So keep that in mind. All right. So look, what are your thoughts on today's episode, Kels?
Honestly, I really would implore everyone who doesn't know much about our history to learn. I mean, I've learned a lot because I was a reporter. So I spent a lot of years learning as much as I could so that I could be as knowledgeable as I could. And I was blown away by the things that I learned as a young adult that I really should have been taught as a child.
Indeed. Honestly, I appreciate Rashida. I appreciate people who it's stressful. Learning your history. So I can imagine how stressful it is teaching it. But I'm grateful for her, and I'm grateful for the audience receiving her. And I hope that we continue to put ourselves in positions where we continue to learn more of this information. And what we learn, we pass on to others so that they can learn. We need some daily inspiration, kids.
I got it. This is from Winston Churchill. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts.
I love that one. Keep going, folks. Keep going. Thanks again to our partners, Matter Wells, One Communications, and Linders for ensuring that we're able to do this with you on a daily basis. If you haven't already, folks, please be sure to follow us and like us on Instagram and Twitter. Go do it now. Don't forget to also subscribe on our YouTube channel. As always, we appreciate you, we love you, and we thank you for making us part of your daily routine. If all goes well, we will be back to do this again with you tomorrow. Go ahead. Peace.
This
folks.